Friends, look around you right now. The room you are sitting in, the screen you are watching this on, the hands you are using to hold your device. It all feels completely solid, completely absolute, and completely real. But what if I told you that modern astrophysics, quantum mechanics, and evolutionary neuroscience are all coming to the exact same terrifying conclusion? The conclusion that none of this, literally none of the physical world as you perceive it, actually exists the way you think it does. We think this is a new cutting edge realization. In Silicon Valley, they call it the simulation hypothesis. But thousands of years ago, the ancient Indian Rishis had already decoded this exact mechanism. They didn't call it a simulation, they called it Maya. Welcome to Bharat Leads. Today, please let me tear down the walls of reality. Let me take you to look at the exact points where, ancient Vedantic philosophy and modern quantum physics perfectly collide. We aren't just talking philosophy today. We are looking at the source code of the universe. So, let's clear the data right away. Because the word Maya is one of the most misunderstood terms in the world. If you read a basic English translation of ancient Indian texts, they usually translate Maya as illusion. And because of that, people think the Rishis were saying the world is fake, that it doesn't exist. That if a bus is coming at you, it's just an illusion, so you don't need to move. That is not what Maya means. Today we aren't just retroactively fitting ancient philosophy into modern science. Let's look at the raw data. Over 3,000 years ago, the Shvetashvatara Upanishad laid down the exact mechanics of physical reality in verse 4.10. It says, Mayam tu prakritim vidyanmayinam cha maheshwaram tasya avyavabhutestu vyaptam sarvamidam jagat. Let's translate the mechanics of what that actually says. Mayam tu prakritim vidyan means know Maya to be Prakriti. Prakriti is the physical, material universe. It is nature. It is the atoms, the radiation, the gravity, and the biological vessel we exist in. The Rishis were explicitly stating that Maya is not a hallucination in your head. Maya is the actual structural rendering of the physical universe. It is the operating system of nature itself. Then, Mayinam cha Maheshwaram. This translates to, and know the wielder of Maya to be the Supreme Lord. Look at the analogy staring at us right in the face. 3 millennia ago, they separated the creation from the creator. They are saying there is a fundamental, unified reality that is projecting a complex, interactive universe called Prakriti. The final line, Tasya avyavabhutestu vyaptam sarvamidam jagat. This declares that everything in this universe, including you, is a fragment, a vyava of that Supreme Lord. You're not separate from the divine. You are a localized drop of the infinite ocean wrapped in the temporary packaging of Maya. The root of the Sanskrit word Maya comes from Ma, which means not, and Ya, which means that. It literally means not that. It doesn't mean reality is empty. It means that the reality you are interacting with is not what it appears to be at face value. The classic example the Rishis used is the rope and the snake. You are walking down a dark path, you see a coiled shape on the ground, and your heart jumps. You perceive a deadly snake. Your biology reacts, your adrenaline spikes. You experience genuine fear. But when you shine a light on it, you realize it's just a piece of rope. Well, the rope was always there. The reality existed. But the snake was Maya. The snake was a projection created by your own mind due to a lack of light. Thousands of years ago, the Rishis stated that our entire human experience is exactly like this. We are looking at a fundamental, unified reality, but our biological hardware is rendering it as a fragmented physical universe. And right now, modern science is proving them absolutely right. Let's look at the neuroscience. For centuries, we believed that our eyes act like a camera, just objectively recording the physical universe. But modern evolutionary neuroscience has completely destroyed that model. Think about the electromagnetic spectrum. The universe is flooded with an infinite amount of radiation and frequencies. Radio waves, microwaves, X rays, gamma rays. Do you know how much of that reality your human eyes can actually perceive? Less than 0.0035%. You are entirely blind to 99.99% of the actual universe. Your ears only pick up a tiny fraction of acoustic frequencies. As Sadhguru says, our sense organs are designed for our survival needs only. They do not let you perceive anything beyond what is required for survival. To perceive the reality, physical sense organs are not enough. And cognitive scientists like Dr. Donald Hoffman at UC Irvine have proposed something called the interface theory of perception. And it sounds exactly like the Upanishads. Hoffman argues that evolution did not wire the human brain to see the truth of reality. If you saw the raw, actual data of the universe, like the swirling quantum fields and radiation, your brain would crash. You wouldn't be able to survive, find food, or reproduce. So, your brain created a biological user interface. Like, think about a computer screen, for example. When you drag a file to the trash can icon, is there an actual physical trash can inside your laptop? No. It's just an icon. It's a 3D rendering that hides the incredibly complex binary code happening on the hard drive. Your brain does the exact same thing. Color, sound, solidity, taste, none of these things actually exist out there in the universe. They are just the 3D icons your brain generates so you can interact with the underlying reality without getting overwhelmed. The Rishis call this exact biological rendering engine Maya. It is the veil. It is the overlay that hides the fundamental truth. Now let's go deeper. Let's step out of biology and look at the actual physics of matter. If you knock on your desk right now, it feels solid. But in 1920s, quantum mechanics blew the lid off of physical reality. When physicists zoomed in on an atom, they expected to find tiny solid marbles. Instead, they found a nucleus so impossibly small, surrounded by an electron cloud, that the atom is 99.999999% completely empty space. Let me give you a sense of scale. If the nucleus of an atom was the size of a peanut, sitting on the 50-yard line of a massive football stadium, for example, the electrons would be the size of gnats buzzing around the very top rows of the stands. Everything in between is empty space. You are made of empty space. The device you are holding is made of empty space. The only reason things feel solid is because electromagnetic fields are repelling each other. You have never actually touched a single solid object in your entire life. You are just feeling the resistance of energy fields. The ancient concept of Maya, explicitly states that the physical, solid world is a transient projection, and the only true reality is the underlying unified consciousness. The solid world is what we call Jagat, and the unified consciousness is Brahman. And then quantum physics discovered the observer effect. In the famous double-slit experiment, physicists found that a quantum particle exists purely as a wave of probability. It is everywhere and nowhere at once. It only collapses into a solid physical particle when it is observed. Even Albert Einstein couldn't wrap his head around this, and he famously asked, "Do you really believe that the moon is not there when you are not looking at it?" Think about the sheer magnitude of that. Modern science is literally saying that the physical universe does not exist in a concrete state until consciousness interacts with it. Thousands of years ago, the sages of Advaita Vedanta said the exact same thing. The universe is drishya, the seen, and it only exists because of the drishta, the seer. Without the observer, the physical world is just an unmanifested field of potential. The math is finally catching up to the mysticism. So if the world is a mental construct, a biological interface, a quantum rendering, why is it here? Why does Maya exist at all? In Silicon Valley, tech billionaires argue that advanced civilizations probably, created a massive computer simulation and we are just living inside of it. But the ancient Indians had a much more elegant, profound explanation. They didn't view it as a cold mechanical computer simulation. They called it Leela, the divine play. The logic goes like this. The fundamental reality of the universe, which we call Brahman, is infinite, formless, and absolute. But absolute perfection is static. To experience anything, to experience love, fear, triumph, or gravity for that matter, the one has to pretend to be many. Think about when you play a highly immersive virtual reality game. If you go into the game knowing that you cannot die, that nothing is real, and that it's all just pixels, the game is boring. You won't care. For the game to be brilliant, for the stakes to feel high, you have to forget that you are wearing a headset. You have to get completely absorbed in the illusion. Maya is a mechanism of forgetting. It limits your infinite awareness, drops you into a specific biological avatar, and makes the world feel so incredibly real that you cry, you fight, you build empires, and you fall in love. The Rishis weren't saying that Maya is evil. Maya is the ultimate feat of cosmic engineering. It is what makes the experience of human life possible. So, if we are all walking around wearing the ultimate VR headset of Maya, how do we take it off? Can you just read a book and figure out how to dismantle your own illusion? Think about it logically. If your own mind is generating the illusion, your mind cannot be the tool that saves you. You cannot use the rendering engine to shut down the rendering engine. You need an intervention from the outside. You need someone who is already standing outside the simulation to reach in and pull the plug. Again, thousands of years ago, the ancient texts laid down exactly how this intervention happens. There is a deeply profound shloka from the Guru Stotam that maps out this exact perceptual surgery. Agyan timiran dasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri guruve namah. Let's translate the mechanics of this. Agyana is the darkness of ignorance, the veil of Maya. Timiran dasya means being completely blinded by it. But look at the next line. Jnananjana shalakaya. A shalaka was an ancient medical instrument, a tiny scalpel or stick used by Ayurvedic surgeons to remove cataracts and restore sight. The Rishis are saying salutations to the Guru, who, using the surgical scalpel of absolute knowing, tears away the cataract of Maya and forces my eyes open. The Guru doesn't give you a new, beautiful things to look at. The guru performs a brutal surgery on your perception so you can finally see what was already there. This is exactly why, when you listen to Sadhguru, he constantly hammers home one very specific unromantic phrase. He strips away all the mystical fluff and says, the whole effort of the spiritual process is just this, to see life exactly the way it is. Not to see miracles, not to see angels, just to see it as it is. Because that is reality. The rest is all your psychological drama. So why is seeing life exactly the way it is the ultimate goal? Why is seeing reality so important? Because human suffering does not exist in reality. It only exists in Maya. Let me explain. Let's go back to the rope and the snake. If you see a snake in the dark, your heart pounds, you panic. You might run and break your leg. The fear and the suffering you are experiencing are 100% real to your biology. But the cause of the suffering is entirely fabricated. When the guru removes the cataract of Maya, you don't go to some magical heaven. You just finally see the rope. And the second you see the rope, the fear vanishes, the anxiety vanishes, the psychological drama of your entire life instantly collapses. You realize you are fighting a war against a shadow. And friends, to transcend Maya doesn't mean you disappear from the world. It means you can finally walk through the world with zero friction because you're no longer suffering your own illusions. You are just experiencing pure, unrendered existence. And to get to that state of absolute clarity, to have that cataract removed, you need the scalpel. You need the guru. Friends, the gap between the physicists at CERN and the mystics in the Himalayas is closing rapidly. We are finally realizing that the ancient Indian sciences weren't primitive superstitions. They were just using a different vocabulary to describe the exact same quantum reality. We live in a deeply convincing, biologically rendered masterpiece. But the next time you get completely overwhelmed by the stress of your life, by your career, by the physical reality in front of you, remind yourself of the data. You're looking at a rope, and your biology is rendering a snake. It's a beautiful, magnificent game, but it is still a game. Friends, if the science of Maya shifted your perspective, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. This is Bharat Leads. Jai Hind.